Here, no?
Yeah.
You're good now.
We're good now?
Yeah,
Okay,
you
sure.
got a delay here.
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon. We've had some technical difficulties, as everybody can see. But welcome to the continuation of our March 10th meetings. And this is our budget work session, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Joyce Sapp and Ms. Vanetta Van Cleef.
Okay.
Take it away.
Good afternoon. Again, thank you all for your patience. And bear with me, a little different point of view here, perspective, different tools. So we'll see if I can drive without making people car sick. All right. As we move through today's conversation, want to call out a couple of highlights as we move through. If there are particular topics that maybe the commissioners don't want to make a decision on, but want to provide feedback for staff to go back and reanalyze and look at things from a different perspective, please feel free to give us that feedback as we move through the day, and we'll take that and bring it back next week, any analysis required.
And before we get really rolling, I wanted to just put a shout out there and thank the professionalism of our Sheriff's Department and the professionalism of our St. Mary's County school system. There was an incident this afternoon at Great Mills High, and it is my understanding that the sheriffs are there on scene. Everything has been contained. So just thank you very much for our incredible Sheriff's Department and the professionalism of our incredible school system employees.
Goodness, I don't know how to follow that. Thank you. Goodness. All right. Today's agenda, we're going to look at the projected revenue update, the operating budget update, compensation review. We'll revisit again. County department budgets request are the big topic of the day, and that's the bolus of what makes up that 367 pages. Thank you. Enterprise and Special Revenue Fund budget requests are included today as well, as most of those are aligned with our county operating departments. Universal fees review. There was a request for a vehicle financing review last week that we brought forward this week, and a fund balance review. So we'll start off with as we move through this process and we double, triple, quadruple check, and as new information comes in, we do make adjustments to the proposed budget on the fly. Each week we highlight where those adjustments have been made, just to keep you all in the loop and aware as we move through the process where things are changing. In this case, the revenue projection update has been updated given our conversation last week. Total income taxes updated to 7.426%, resulted in $166 million in projected revenues. And we had an update to the state and federal grants for the VOICA grant that was discussed. Are there any comments, review?
Nope.
Moving on. In our requested operating budget, again highlighted in purple, you can see the updates. The top of grade stipend sheriff's office, that is an addition. Again, as we refine, that was an item that it was brought to our attention needed to be included. On the refining topic, next week you will see a reduction to the benefits impact in the amount of $472,000, as that benefit for the increased healthcare premium is going to be picked up out of the premium refund as discussed earlier this year with the HR director. So we'll be pulling that out. Highlighted in pink are the county departments, that we'll be meeting with individually today as you deem fit. We had a update to the state's attorney's office, again, that VOCA grant information. Subsequent to our last meeting, the College of Southern Maryland, we had a slight reduction in their request, so that is reflected. And that concludes the updates in that section of our presentation today.
Just one minor thing.
Mm-hmm.
The state's attorney, the VOCA grant, that's the one we discussed last week? During our-
1 or 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yes.
We had another one
That was-
this morning.
That is not reflected here yet.
Okay.
Yeah, Voca was last week.
Yes.
Okay. Understood. Just double checking. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm still catching my breath from the excitement with the technology. Current budget request balance, just looking at our current revenue projection of $355.8 million, the baseline request of $338.9 million, essential cost change request of 16.7, open items of 8.6, open items and reserves, compensation adjustment, that is the shortfall if all were to be funded out of the operating budget. Just bringing forth the numbers, we know that there are several levers we can pull as we navigate balance, striking a balance. And this is just reiterating the line item detail of the county compensation adjustment. Again, that number will drop by $472,000 when presented next week. Just as a reminder, excuse me, the merit market adjustment is a C scale only. Cost of living is all scales. The 2.5 merit increase is steps, all scales except AE, which is directors. The sworn market adjustment and corrections market adjustment, those are inclusive of benefits, and the benefits you see below are exclusive. The ranks for the sworn, those are non-discretionary, and then the top of grade stipend for the sheriff's office. And we'll kick off the day with you folks, county commissioners and county administrator budget request. As we move through the conversation, there are two table of contents sheets that you may want to reference. The table of contents lists the page number in the volume of paper that we provided you for each of the departments. And the second one is a matrix that actually shows where the ECCs are located, any grant information, any associated fees. So just looking at it by department on the second page is our page reference.
Okay, where is that document?
That is page 84 and 85.
Okay, and that'll help us reference the EEC explanation.
Yes, and that's what I'll be referencing to, and Ms. Sapp, as we identify the page numbers as you have questions and want to dig into further detail, where to reference that detailed information. Okay. For the county commissioners and county administrator, we do have one ECC under miscellaneous for $50,000. If you would like to discuss, or if you don't have any questions.
County administrator.
Deputy County Administrator Dave Yingling is approaching.
Good afternoon, sir.
This is a prior year funded program that we discontinued last year to balance the budget. It is a leadership academy. It is a multidisciplinary cohort-based program for about 50 senior St. Mary's County employees, partnered with the College of Southern Maryland to provide training, retention, and it really was effective the 2 years that we ran it. It's also part of our succession planning to help, as you gentlemen know, we have a lot of employees who are nearing the end of their careers, which means we'll have holes to fill, so it's a great way to provide training and experience to our employees.
Okay.
Any further questions? All right,
No.
thank you.
Build the bench.
Amen. And training. Training is important.
And we'll move on to Aging and Human Services. We have several ECCs. Lori Harris approaching to address any questions you may have.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Lori Jennings Harris, Department of Aging and Human Services Director.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
So I have 3 ECCs. One of them has to do with the request for a senior center assistant. That's a request that we made last year. And as Commissioner Guy points out all the time, the older adult population is growing and growing. So we see requests and a desire and a need for an increase in the services and programs that are provided through the senior activity centers. And so this person would address the number of activities that we currently provide, in addition to other programs and activities that we are hearing from the community. They would manage the LIFE program, virtual senior activity center programs, and others.
The van that you have in here for the replacement van, I'm assuming there's a previous van that is out of service now, or?
So it's not out of service, but it's ending its lifespan. Yeah, so it's almost 10 years old. So by the end of this budget cycle, it will be 10 years old, and it will exceed the miles that, Public Works and Transportation looks at 10 years for vehicles for replacement and then a certain number of miles. So it will exceed that by the end of this budget cycle. If we wait until next year, it'll be another year older. It's the van that we use to deliver our frozen meals. It's a refrigerated van,
Okay.
and
Oh,
it's on its last leg.
It'll be at 150,000 miles, but it's
Yes.
still working, so if we have to slide it one more year, we can keep it running one more year?
Well, we're throwing good money after bad then, because we have difficulty with it, and it breaks down on a
Do we
pretty
know what the
frequent basis.
cost of repairs has been this past year on it?
I can't recall off the top of my head. I don't know.
Your total request is $129,029?
Is that what the total is, George? What was your question? 100, the
The total
total
amount of the EECs?
for the 3?
Correct.
Yes, 129,000.
Total amount of the ECCs.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Doesn't sound too bad.
I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to the county attorney budget request. There's no increase ECC requested. In fact, they do have a slight decrease in their annual budget request.
Your budget's approved.
Done.
He does have something lurking in the
Wait a
IT
minute
budget.
now, no surprise.
All right. And economic development budget request. We have an ECC under economic development, a couple under the ag and seafood development, business development.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Cindy
Good afternoon.
Greb, Director of Economic Development. We have 3 ECCs before you for consideration. Which one would you like to tackle first?
Well, let me ask you, you're asking for $426,489 total?
That's correct.
Yes.
And I'm counting 4 ECCs, am I not?
Oh, okay, so I didn't realize we kept the airport one in. Did we keep the
I
airport
see
one
you
in?
want $240,000. That's a lot of money for, what do you want?
So that looks like that's for the economic development study.
Yeah,
Yes,
that-
sir. So
that's,
we are required to be able to be eligible and stay relevant. Your Economic Development Commission is responsible for having and utilizing and developing a tool, which is our economic development strategy. It's a one-time expense that lasts 5 years. Our last study was done and completed in 2022. So we are due to complete a new study, have a new study done, and have it up and running by the end of next year.
So I took a look at the current one that we're still implementing, which it's phenomenal. It's got a lot of really good stuff in it. What would it look like for us to take that one and work with the Economic Development Commission and make some updates and tweaks to it? Obviously, it wouldn't be a $240,000 product. but-
Agreed. I do, actually, because that 2022 one was coming off of post-COVID, there were a lot of things that were not identified or studied at the time, and I think that with technology and some of the new innovative opportunities that are coming to our community, that we owe it to the community to actually do a full, brand-new study, not just do an update like the 2022 was. And with that, I've done, state of Maryland is averaging $100,000 to $300,000 per SEDS. And Charles County is averaging $180,000 with a contingency of $60,000. So we did run up to these other adjacent counties to find out what are they spending, what are their consultants charging, and what do we get? What is the bang for the buck at the end of the day? Obviously, we need to have that critical tool and direction, not just locally, regionally, and statewide, and retain so that we're eligible for grant funding from Maryland Commerce.
Well, you're a new director, and I'm glad you're here, and we want you to succeed. We had a similar situation when land use got a new director and asked for a contractor or consultant to look at the 2050 plan, and I supported that. I'm not trying to tell you I'm supporting it. I'm willing to consider it, but you're saying it's something that can't wait till next year?
Not next fiscal year, no, sir, because it was signed in October 2022. So by October 2027, we would need to have one in play.
But we could do it out of fund balance, though, because it's a one-time
And again,
expense.
I do believe the 240 is very conservative. I would love to not say it's that expensive. I believe we could get it cheaper than that, but I wanted to make sure that you were aware of what our adjacent counties are doing and what's happening in the state of Maryland.
Okay.
You don't want me to have to come back up in front of you, do you?
We
Request.
always enjoy it.
We're always interested in hearing new ideas.
Yes,
We're
sir.
just worried about the cost of
I
these new
agree, and
ideas.
we will be incredibly fiscally responsible. That is not something that I take lightly.
All right, well, we'll put this one,
For this airport acoustic tile, we were talking this morning about the $150,000 that we had to give back in grant money. Is that a project that could be applied towards the entitlements for next year? Through the airport?
I do not know. If we can, the tiles are the final stage of when the architect came in and did the design plans for the terminal, and it's been staged. So those acoustical tiles are that last element.
Okay.
It's just a matter of whether or not the commissioners want to do that this fiscal year coming up or postpone it.
Thank you.
Okay.
well, Madam, actually, I'm sorry, Madam, Mrs. Van Cleef, could you put that on 240 down as a potential fund balance expense?
Noted.
Thank you.
Now, the Ag Seafood brand implementation, I love the brand that we've come up with. Or
The
that you all-
AgriCoast, yes, sir.
It's wonderful.
This was a repeat. This was also asked for last year. The Ag Seafood Division has a very, very small budget of $11,000, and they're expected to manage and run everything from seafood all the way through to the farmers markets and showcase, and help entrepreneurs become strong businesses in our community. So this would be an incredible opportunity for us to follow through with the intention of what the AgriCoast branding does.
Is that the 121,000?
No, sir, that's 40,000.
40,000, okay. Got a lot of professional services here. Sounds like a lot of contracts.
Well, the 40,000 would be utilized by us. That would be us implementing and showcasing that brand and doing more work with our same team.
Okay. What about your 121.5?
It's the acoustical.
That's the-
tile.
That's the
Yeah,
acoustical tiles.
That's, we're going to try and find that out of the grant?
Yes, sir, we can go back and research if that's an
Well, since we had to
option.
give back, since we had to give back 150 from entitlements for airports, see if we can do for next year, go ahead and encumber that money. That way, we're not to worry about giving $150,000 to another regional airport.
No,
somewhere.
I get you on that
yeah.
one. And, but he also talked about fixing drainage that's been in there since the inception of the airport.
Yep.
My sense of it is the tile and the terminal is not a high priority list, at least for this commissioner.
I agree.
I agree.
And I'm not trying to say,
Understood.
okay, let's not spend 121,000 on tile, but that sounds like a lot of money for something that's, could go maybe to a better use somewhere else. So let's
Yes, sir.
see if we can find it in a grant, but I can't support it now.
And I also think with the two new directors between DED and DPW&T, that they can get together and put their heads together and see what else can be done in terms of sound dampening or deafening, and maybe find a different solution. We'll see.
But who are we trying to protect? I mean, I go over there and eat lunch at that, what, Bird Dog Bistro,
Bird
whatever
Dog
that place is.
Bistro, yes, sir.
There's hardly everybody ever in there. Well, again, they're
I've been to
probably
s-
there when I'm not there.
I've been to several of our events there for the Civil Air Patrol and things like that, and to be honest, I've never noticed a real
Yeah, well,
difficulty
tell
in
us,
hearing
what is-
anything.
What
I-
is the need? What is the,
It would help with the sound. The problem is it would probably take away from the aesthetic, right? Because it's that beautiful, tall, but we'll put our heads
well,
together.
help me, it would help with the sound. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's just like you see at restaurants, right? The sound now goes up, I don't know, 50, 60 feet. If you put the deadening there, the sound would,
I just think 121,000.
you're asking
is a lot of
math.
money.
Well, there's an engineer in here somewhere.
No, let's not be an engineer. No, we don't need
He's
an
not happy I put
It
an
just sounds like a
ECC
lot of
in
money
his
for
airport terminal.
sound in.
They need to get together and,
We'll talk. I will
Maybe
speak with
tighten that
Mr.
up a
Norris.
little bit,
Yes,
but I
sir.
can't support that one either.
Yes, sir.
And then the barns at Newmarket, they've been asking for a while, or you all have been asking for a while, to try and get some additional support there. So right now, during farmer's market season, it's open Saturday mornings.
Yes, sir, and then during the week as well. And our staff typically is spending either evenings and every Saturday up there during the season because the current part-time manager is maxed out at capacity. So we're not utilizing that facility, and you all know how much I love that barn. We are not utilizing it to its full potential, which is a shame because it's reflecting negatively on what we could potentially be offering are the citizens of this community, young entrepreneurs and farmers, and it could be utilized so much more than what we currently are doing.
You have vacancies there as far as your vendors?
No, sir, we do not. We have a waiting list.
Maybe we have to rent. I always say when you
We
have
can always
more
build another
demand-
building.
When you have more demand than you have supply, i.e. a waiting list.
There's room in the back for another structure.
Yeah, but we gotta fix that parking up there. That one
It's rough.
way in and out was a lousy idea.
I don't know who designed
I
that.
don't-
Where's Gary Whipple?
I'll put that one in the back burner too.
And it's tough, that parking lot. It gets pretty packed.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
Next up is Emergency Services, and I'll note, Emergency Services has a county department as well as a couple of enterprise funds, so we may bounce around a little bit as Director Jen Utz approaches to answer any questions regarding
Just didn't even wait.
Requests.
Knew we'd want to talk.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I don't have much time, so, no, I'm just kidding. I'm happy my colleagues left me a little bit of coin on the table, because we do have several requests this year, several ECCs, and if we want to work through the packet or how you want me to proceed, I'm happy to answer any questions or give any oversight.
Well, real quick, because I don't see it listed on the ECCs, but we've had conversations about it in the past. The animal shelter, there's been a lot of discussion from our Animal Control Advisory Board about buying some kind of a printer for dog collars that would save money in the long run. Did
Yep,
we
so
find a
we-
way to make that work?
We did. We found some money in our budget to make that work. The machine has been purchased, delivered to Animal Control, and the Animal Control Advisory Board was notified last week during our hearing, or our meeting,
Excellent.
that has been accomplished. That did not make the ECCs. We were able to find funds.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, what I always like to establish is your request is $2,461,503. That's a big number.
It is.
And what you have here is equipment for $1,058,000.
Correct.
Explain that to us a little.
Right, so the
I can
majority,
read it,
that $1 million that you see would go to exempt financing, if I'm correct. So that includes the core replacement for the 911 center. So that's the software, hardware, that's our cybersecurity, that's all end of life, end of maintenance. So we have no service agreements on that equipment in there that runs the hardware and software in the background. So the majority of that money is request for the core replacement. The
Okay,
additional, go ahead.
Is that like once you buy it, is that, you don't buy it again for 5 years, 10 years?
I think it's 10 or 15.
15 years? That looks like
Kirsten, I don't know
looks
if
like
Kirsten
a
wants to come up, but
fund
it's 10
balance.
10 to 15 years before that comes up for replacement.
Potential fund balance.
Correct.
recipient.
It is non-reoccurring, and as such, one of the levers that can be pulled.
Right. Hi, how are you? No, I'm on board with it. I'm just thinking if we could fund
Replacement
it
cycle.
as a one-time expense versus a recurring expense.
Every 10 to 15 years.
Because I see these personnel, I think they're recurring expenses. That's yes.
What is a recurring?
Personnel.
Personal services, personnel, sir. It looks like you need more people. You want more people.
We do have requests for additional staff, that is true. But I was going to finish answering the $1 million request, if I could. So that's the core replacement, which is the bulk of that. That is the replacement of the EMS portable radios. So last year, or this current year, we replaced fire and law enforcement. So that then brings our EMS folks up to par. And then we have equipment requests, EQs from the Volunteer Fire and Rescue Services for additional portable radios, additional pagers. So that's where you see that $1 million in that 2.4.
Well, I mean, that's something I think we can do out of fund balance if we don't spend it all. But how many vacancies do you have?
So currently, we have 20, I want to say 27 vacancies.
And you're asking for 4 or 5 more people?
Correct, in
Hard to
emergency.
support more people when you get so many vacancies.
So our emergency management, radio repair, and our animal services divisions are fully staffed. Our vacancies currently exist in communications and in EMS. So EMS, we are hiring 4 full-time EMTs this Friday, 1 hourly EMT and 3 hourly paramedics. We have some members in process for the promotional process for our supervisory vacancies. So in part, there are requests for expanding EMS. And then we did get a late request by a volunteer rescue squad to go 24 hours after a leadership change. So our initial ECC reflects 2 EMTs to take Charlotte Hall to 12 hours a day to give them additional coverage. But we do have a late request that we would have to file an appeal for to get Valley Lee 24-hour coverage that they're asking for. And that was just timing and change of leadership. So the existing leadership in October wanted to stay on 12 hours. The new leadership feels that they need 24-hour support. So the other part is the paramedic supervisors. So in 2024, FY25, we approved 2 additional supervisors. So we have 6 field supervisors, and the hope was to get to 8 to help them offset that supervisory function out there. And then 4 paramedics, because we want to staff. So last year, we staffed a paramedic ambulance. So we have 2 chase cars, 1 paramedic ambulance, and we'd like to bring up another paramedic ambulance. So I understand the concern. And again, I'll stop using this analogy. I'll find you a new one, but I'm a Field of Dreams person. If you build it, they will come. And today was critical for us. That contract approval of that EMS chief is critical to us establishing the support, the foundation that we need to move it forward. So, and we're going to have to take some different direction, right? So we're running out of people that are already certified to hire. And so many jurisdictions around the state hire people with no experience in EMS, train them, and give them the tools to be successful. And I think we're going to look at that model ourselves because, the well's running dry. And we're pulling from our volunteer partners. And it's just it's a conundrum that every department faces across the country. But there is a solution to it, and we need to pull on that string a bit harder.
Well, part of me wants to say that we have a affordability issue in this country, but in this county where it's a high cost of living. And part says if you can give existing employees more money, it's hard to give you more money and more people.
Understood.
It's like take one or the other. And I think if people had the opportunity, they want more money. So I don't know. I got to look at it.
Understood, Commissioner.
One of
Understood.
my questions would be, because it seems to me like, we acquire new people, we bring them on, we hire them, they work here for X amount of time, and then they go across the bridge to earn more money, right?
No.
So That's
And I
pretty
think
much it.
the pay parity is quite similar
Yeah,
now
I think
with,
we're pretty good on that.
where you did the
Close now.
mid-year adjustment
So we're
last
not
January.
losing to other counties any longer.
Right. And there's there's various reasons why people want to leave. It could be pay, it could be pension, it could be call volume, right? Some of our busier stations, they're running, around the clock, and people get exhausted by, that. And it's bizarre to me because I signed up to run calls and I couldn't get enough, but, being on an ambulance 24 hours a day can be exhausting.
Now, with this program, like I know, like through my company in my day job, if I go to college and get my degree, I owe the company X amount of time. I can't just take my degree and say, okay, bye, I'm going to go move somewhere, take more money. I
Right.
assume there's something along those lines. What is that? Can you spell that out?
I think it's for the folks that seek to get their paramedic license. There's some reimbursement from the county for tuition reimbursement, but I do believe it is in the county policy that if they leave, there's a, right? HR's here? No?
Is there
I
like
do
a
believe that
requirement
there's-
for them to stay on board with the company?
There's no,
for
no
the county?
requirement for them to stay, but I have worked in other jurisdictions where that has been a stipulation of providing that training and time to train, so paid time off the train. That stipulation then becomes, you'll stay on board for 5 years or whatever, or you have to
back.
reimburse proactive,
Right.
prorated.
That's what a lot of companies do that, right? You get your degree, you owe us at least a year. If you leave within that year, you owe us,
Right.
prorated portion of that back to us.
After onboarding Mr. Moreland this morning, where are you, with your, I hate to say it, I don't want to sound dismissive, the middle management, but from your deputy directors down to the field supervisors, where are you in that chain of command there?
Where
As
am I?
far as vacancies?
Oh, a vacancy. So the assistant chief position remains vacant. We do have applicants for that. We're going to conduct another round of interviews with Chief Moreland on board. And then we have currently 3 EMS lieutenant vacancies, but they have been through interviews. And so there's a selection process for that.
The EMS captain.
EMS captain's filled.
Yep.
And you said you had 4 EMTs this week that were interviewing or onboarding?
4 EMTs start Friday. So
Start Friday.
we put them through a 4-week academy, and then we put them out for field training. So 6 weeks or so, they'll be hitting the field and fully operational.
All right.
And then hourly, it's 1 hourly EMT and 3 hourly paramedics.
So, yeah, my concern is always the stations that are asking for help, and if we're not able to meet that help, that's alarming and troubling. Pivoting slightly, I think you asked for a brand-new ambulance.
I did.
Do we need a brand-new ambulance?
Yeah, so we own 2 ambulances. One is the primary 188 that is stationed out of Charlotte Hall. That vehicle currently it's a 2021 model, and it has 58,000 miles on it. Our second ambulance is 189, that's our reserve apparatus. That is a 2014, so it's 12 years old, and it has about 190,000 miles on it. That's the one we want to replace. The Triple K standard, which is like the equivalent to the NFPA standards, recommends 5 years and 250,000 miles, but we've exceeded the time limit on that. We're 12 years into it. We're at 190,000 miles. So our request would be to replace 189, make that the primary unit out of Charlotte Hall, and pull 188 into reserve status so we can get longevity out of that vehicle and then develop a replacement cycle with DPWT that makes sense for these 2 ambulances. So it's not uncommon to get 10 years out of an ambulance if it's not, hitting the ground every day like at Lexington Park. But that's the concept, that we replace the older one, put it in service, and preserve the newer one so that we can develop a plan for replacement that doesn't burden us year over year.
And that's the one that we bought used, I believe.
Correct, when Career EMS first started. And we loan that unit to the various volunteer stations when they're down apparatus and use it for special events.
How much was that ambulance?
The existing?
No,
Or the one we're
replacement,
requesting?
The one you want to buy
I think we have a quote for approximately 430,000, but,
for an ambulance.
That-
yeah.
That's
and-
fully outfitted.
I believe it has the equipment.
Yeah, I have it. I don't see that. Because this is broken down, 439,650. Now, there's
439, 650.
439,650. Now, when it's time to purchase a unit, there's varying factors that can go into it. The price, could go down. We wouldn't go above that ceiling, but that's sort of a high range of where we would look. But there is a chance that the price would go down in the development or building of that model or buying, a demo off the lot if it meets our needs.
Another fund balance potential,
Understood.
because we should expect that to last 8 years.
At least 10, I would think, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further? You want to go over the ECCs, or you have enough information
Do
from
you
what's
have
in it?
anything further to add?
Oh, we have quite a few ECCs, but I don't
Well,
know.
we've read them, yeah.
Okay, I know you have. I'm sure you spent lots
I'm
of
just trying
time.
to tell you, we don't know how, as you saw, we have, 18 million and more requests than we have funds for.
Understood, Commissioners.
So we got to be practical, but we want to hear everybody, and we can read, so you don't have to read it to us.
That's great. I appreciate that. Save some time for the other folks. But yeah, certainly if there's any other questions or follow-ups, I'm available. Otherwise, I appreciate your time and your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So last week, when we started, or 2 weeks ago, I beg your pardon, when we looked at the zero-based budgeting, there were some questions, and the presentation didn't lend itself well to a good conversation. Received some feedback, and that feedback resulted in re-presenting for all the zero-based budget departments by program, noting that, as we discussed, we did not previously budget by program. Therefore, there's no prior year comparison included in these conversations. I did provide an addendum A, which pulls the full department together, which is on your desk and came out subsequent to the initial package. So we can look at it by a whole department, or we can walk through the different programs.
So as we shift to this by department model with zero-based budgeting, will we still maintain the line item accounting?
Yes,
Okay. So that'll still exist in the background underlying all of this?
it will. What you see in your package is a summary.
Okay.
Let's hold, I will.
Well, before you get there, what I think I've recognized here is this zero-balanced budgeting, everything's needed. You know,
Of course.
It's like nothing's not needed, otherwise you wouldn't be asking for it. But you do ask for people.
Correct.
And if you had your choice of what's your priority, I know they're all important, any new positions are important, but you have needs at different spots, and what would you put your priority at?
So Finance did ask for 3 new positions, a payroll supervisor, a budget manager, and a budget analyst. The priority is the payroll supervisor,
Payroll supervisor?
is priority 1.
Okay, how much is that?
Oh. Please hold. I apologize with the transition.
I probably should ask you in advance.
Ye-
But I'm
I
just
do
trying
not
to
ha-
understand, if you want a
Yep.
recurring spot, we need to plug it in
Right.
with what we have.
I do not have that at my fingertips, and due to technology difficulties, I also don't have access to that file. It was in last week's package. Joy, do you remember?
Well, look, before we go down that road, just figure it out at some point.
Yeah. It's also in last week's packages, but I will disseminate that immediately upon
Okay.
finishing up today. So that's the first priority. As indicated, and when we talked before, I indicated that there's a significant skill set gap between the payroll processing folks and the controller, and the controller has AP, accounting, other functions, and we really need to fill that gap between processing and management, and have a subject matter expert, a certified payroll professional in that role to provide that detailed regulatory support to payroll. The second highest priority is the budget manager. Deputy Director Sapp is filling 2 roles, the budget manager, as well as half of the deputy role, and I'm trying to help pick up the other half of the deputy role in order to support our budget analyst and get them develop their skill sets and provide them with some additional bandwidth, especially with if we consider going to zero-based budgeting for the entire county next year, that is a heavy lift. They're already stretched very thin bandwidth-wise, which results in a lot of processing, but budget analysts, there's not a lot of analyst time that they can provide. They are really just processing at this point because they're very stretched thin. So that's the reason for those 3 requests. But back to your main point, in zero-based budgeting, if we're asking for a reason. It's not a roll forward. We've analyzed the programs, the needs, what are the goals and the objectives to be met, and what are the resources needed to meet those goals. And new programs. Zero-based budgeting is new. It does require some resources.
Okay.
Any other questions I can answer regarding? So as a note, what you see before you does have, again, the new positions, just like they would be in an ECC, you just can't see them split out. Does have the new positions included. What it does not have is any anticipated commissioner decision on merit, COLA, et cetera. It is strictly at the baseline.
The 3 positions would be 604?
No, sir. This is the administrative program. We're not asking for any new positions here. This is existing. And then general accounting, no new positions. The positions, there would be 1 in accounts payable, in addition to the 2 that are currently there. Excuse me, none in accounts payable, 1 in payroll, in addition to the 2 that are currently there. And then this is reflective of the request for 2 in the budgeting program activity. And then no personnel request in procurement. And here is the staffing matrix. Unfortunately, I did not put the dollars on there for you.
You have 3 vacancies.
Those are the 3 new positions that we're requesting. First priority, payroll manager. Second, budget manager. And third priority,
So
the budget
you're full.
analyst.
You don't have any vacancies in your department.
Correct. Okay, all right. If there's no further
Just
questions.
making my notes. Go ahead.
Yep. And Human Resources, again, we heard from them as well, but re-presenting today, again, with that programmatic or activity focus.
Okay.
If you have any questions, Tracy McPherson is with us, I believe.
Just, I mean, we emailed about this the other day, but just my confusion when it comes to zero-based budgeting, when we see a line item that has 0 expenditures for multiple years, and then there's still a request for it this year, is it really needed? That's kind of the question, right? That is the question.
I'll let Tracy speak to that, but I can speak in general terms across the board. Sometimes it was budgeted and anticipated, but a higher need came up during the year, so budget realignment occurred under our old methodology, which was less disciplined. This year, the zero-based budgeting is a little more disciplined. So Tracy, if you'd like to
Yes.
speak to that particular item.
Good afternoon. I think one of the line item in the HR budget that fits that description is mileage. We talked
Yes.
about that last time when I was up here. And we keep that there. We have a few legit events that we go throughout the year. If there's not a pool car available, then we would need to use that budget. But we've been lucky enough that there's been a pool car available when we've had to go do that.
Okay. So I think when we've been lucky enough for 8 years,
Yeah.
it's more than luck. I think we're doing pretty good with that. So
Yeah.
that's just something I want us to pay attention to.
Yeah. And we will definitely,
Okay.
it's less likely now to fly under the radar with this zero-based budgeting, but we'll definitely, we would look at that next year for sure, as well as this year. It's under a microscope now with this template that we're using.
How much money are you talking about?
It's $100 in that.
Yeah,
one.
it's $100 or $200
Oh, come on.
for mileage.
That's not even worth talking about.
Yeah.
It's worth talking about. It's taxpayer money.
$100. You're talking about cutting 1.5 million this morning. That's a lot of money. $100 is nothing. Anyway, go ahead.
Did you have any other questions?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and we will move on to information technology. When last we met on this topic, we understood a desire to do a deeper dive into some of the wants and the discretionary items. So I am going to change files here. So again, what you have in your package is represented in the program or activity-focused view. But taking that line item detail, I believe Angie indicated that she was very intentional about must-haves, our infrastructure, and correct me if I go off base here, the needs are to maintain the current service level, and the wants are the new requests. So I have filtered this, the line item detail down to the wants, if you have any particular questions that you would like to address. And with that, Angie, I'll turn it over to you if you have anything you would like to expand on.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Now, you tell us what you need, really need.
What I really need,
Yeah, what you really need.
my 2 FTEs.
2 more people.
The two full-time FTEs would be,
And what are they?
one of them is a PC Tech 2.
PC, personal computer?
Yep. These are our help desk technicians. Our call volume has increased over the years, and the more that we depend on technology, the more we get called. The other position is, I believe the title is AS400 Programmer Analyst, but it's our cloud computing support people. We have 2 people that do that now, enterprise support. We have 16 different applications that they are the sole people that run those applications, and they are buried right now.
Okay. Get an idea what these 2 positions cost? Get back to me when you get down.
Thank you. Will do.
Now, all of these wants that you have narrowed down on your list, are those recurring? They're all recurring?
Most of these are, we can go back to that. Most of these are one and dones.
Okay.
Now, the ones under electronic reference are, they'll have a reoccurring cost because those are cloud applications.
Okay.
So they'll have an ongoing maintenance fee that will be put into our software maintenance. The video server is, if we have new cameras, those are all one and dones. So there's minor cost in maintaining those. The cameras need to be on a replacement cycle, so, you know, they'll come up again years later for replacement.
So you're in the unfair situation of this is all for other departments and other people's needs.
That is
not-
correct.
Not your own office.
Correct.
Per se. So for instance, why does Wacomico Shores need new phones?
So currently, Wacomico Shores is on the old, plain old telephone. And what we're trying to do there is to bring them onto our phone system so that they can be at an extension just like the rest of us across county government.
You have 2 vacancies currently?
Currently, I have 1 vacancy.
Okay, I just saw it.
Yeah, there was a
4.
second one. The GIS technician got hired and started today.
Oh.
So he's no longer vacant. The other one is our CISO, and if all goes well
Is your
this
what
week,
now?
I'm sorry, cybersecurity information.
Okay, very important.
He is currently being vetted, and if all goes well, he starts on Monday. So I will have no vacancies.
Okay. All right. So you have no vacancies other than the ones you need?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
I think so.
All right. Moving on to Land Use and Growth Management. Director Jessica Andritz approaching.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
So as you can see, we only have one request before you, and that is as the result of us sort of nearing the end of updating the comprehensive plan. Probably the biggest lift that one could then imagine would come next, which is updating the comprehensive zoning ordinance. And so the request that you have before you is to allow us to put an RFP on the streets to hire a third-party consultant to assist with that Herculean effort, if you will. But we don't anticipate needing to start that process until later on this summer, depending on how things go with the public adoption process.
Okay, I always believed that the comp plan, which is very much needed and due, is the first step, but this zoning ordinance will really be where the rubber meets the road.
Indeed.
And this is with the part where people will probably really see a difference in their neighborhoods or a difference in uses. So I do believe this one's very important. So the last one was, what, 350,000 for the previous consultant for the?
It was 400.
Well, so I don't know what previous
The
contract.
comprehensive plan, I think.
Okay,
you're
and
asking.
yeah, it was 300.
Okay.
Well, this is one that I would almost defer to the next board to make a decision
Yeah,
on.
I'm thinking the same thing.
Because
Because,
the next board might have a different desire on how to handle it.
yeah, it's only a little over 8 months away. Now, you want to try and do something with it in July, or you're trying to put something on the street when?
So right now, we're hoping that we'll be able to bring the comprehensive plan through the public adoption process later on. I'm going to say early summer is what we're targeting for.
Let's see, it was supposed to be winter. Well, in my mind, I thought we were going to have the plan of winter of 26 in this. And then it seems to be stretching out is what I'm getting at.
We were originally targeting for spring, early spring of this year. Right now, as all of you know, we've been holding a series of open houses. We held them in the beginning of February and also in March. And basically what we've been working with is a 45-day public comment period for people to give us feedback on the initial draft, hoping that when we get through to the public adoption phase of the project, which is the end of the project, that it will have been vetted throughout the community, and that the folks that come forward would come in support of the plan, not in opposition to the plan. So that's where we are right now. Our team has been hitting the streets, doing just about anything we can within reason to get input from the community. And as you can imagine, for something that's this impactful for our community, public engagement has been an important priority. So unfortunately, those things take time, and we're doing everything that we can to engage every member within our community that needs to and ought to have a voice in the project.
Well, something I find unfortunate is the amount of public input has not been very high. And it is what it is. At some point in time, you got to say, I've put this out there enough times. I don't think anybody can say they never had an opportunity to input. It's been out there a lot of times. So at some point in time, I think you got to quit putting that in front of you in the 45 days and get this thing done. That's what I'm getting at. Now, if this board doesn't see it till summer to finalize it, is that what you're thinking?
Yes, well, I'm going to say probably early summer. As a matter of fact, I have the calendar, but we're trying to work out some dates with the consultant. But what I can tell you is at the end of April, I believe, we'll be bringing forward a briefing that will share the results of the final community engagement window, which ends on March 25th.
And does it go to Planning Commission after that?
Indeed, it does.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you intend to use the same consultant, or would you see who else? I mean, it seemed like it would make sense if these people have had this much time in the community, that they'd have a sense of what's going on. But is this $250 to bring in a new consultant group that would have to start all over again?
Yes, there's been no discussion with the current consultant about sort of keeping them on the project to fruition. As you can imagine, community visioning and creating goals that bring forward a comprehensive plan are dramatically different than writing law. And so we need to see what else is out there and a good fit for our county.
I think I'd prefer to see this come back in a December, January timeframe as a briefing to the new board, whoever's sitting up here, might not be any of us. And that way they can decide where to go with it at that point versus us allocating spending money and then a new board wants to go a totally different direction and it's money down the drain.
I would agree.
All right. Well, that's all we have for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next up, we have Public Works and Transportation. John Norris III, Director approaching.
Afternoon, Commissioners.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Now, your ask is $1,052,000.
Yes, sir.
New guy on the block, that's a lot of money. Let's see here. How many people you want?
Well, we've got a number of lead maintenance mechanics, too, that are in the request. We're surrendering, excuse me, a grant position for an MS4 inspector.
Is that MS4 program, I mean, it seems like we have that pretty much under control. What's the inspector got to do? Just make sure the stormwater doesn't get into the wastewater, the sewer water, and
It's really ensuring compliance with the construction requirements and then ensuring compliance with the maintenance requirements. So we get issues that have dams with trees growing on them that's compromising a dam. The inspector will identify that. We'll use the maintenance agreement with the property owner for them to go out and fix it. And frankly, it's to avoid the fines with MDE.
okay, an MS4 coordinator or supervisor?
Yes, it is. Let me get through all the building services.
I think it's slide 160. That may be the faster way for me to find that for you.
Which page?
No, I was looking for, just the slide 160 has the,
Page 160 in your package. Please hold.
oh, it doesn't identify it. So it is.
It should be on your screen now.
Yeah. Yeah, I was looking for that
Like
ECC.
172 is the ECC for the MS4.
So 172, please.
Okay.
It is MS4 Inspector 2, Roman numeral 2. Again, the net cost of that is actually reduced because there is a grant position that's being surrendered for that.
Grant's no longer available?
It's less that the grants are not available, it's more that we don't have the ability to expend the grant if you don't have the inspectors to go out and check the work and be able to comply with the grant requirements. I appreciate, being in county government for 20 years, I appreciate this board's fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers and how you execute that. And at an 82-day freshman in this department, I can't say that I identified all of the fat. I can say that there is indicia that hopefully we've severed a capillary and not a artery or a vein.
Yeah, I get it. You only been here 3 months, right?
It's 82 days.
But who's counting?
So giving up the grant funding, which amplifies the taxpayers' money and contributions to the projects that are meaningful here in St. Mary's County, was a hard thing for me to suggest doing. But we are running behind on the inspections, and we've seen what MDE has done in other jurisdictions, neighboring jurisdictions, with respect to enforcement and levying fines, because as their coffers get tight, we tend to see more local governments getting fined for things that may have been okay, but or looked under a different microscope.
Well, tell me, if you have your priority of employees, what are they? Or new hires? What's your
Our new hires, we're running at this point with maintenance mechanics covering more than 75,000 square feet of building space. You've got 890,000 square feet of building and not nearly enough people to do it. Our salaries are competitive. The benefits here are better than they are in Calvert. You have, for a teenager, a 20, a 30, 40-year-old person that wants to be working in the trades, working for St. Mary's County government offers you opportunities and a pension that you can't find elsewhere. Even Charles County pension's not based on the state system.
How many of these people are you looking for?
So there's 4 lead mechanics, if I recall correctly.
4 of them?
I'm sorry, two lead maintenance mechanics and the MS4 individual. And we have one more personnel request. Equipment mechanic for the vehicles. Those are the 4 people. So there's 2 lead maintenance mechanics in building services.
Right.
In the administration side, there's the MS4 inspector.
Right.
And in the vehicle maintenance side, there's one more vehicle maintenance.
One for vehicle
technician.
maintenance?
Sorry?
You said one for vehicle maintenance?
One for vehicle maintenance, yes.
Now, if we are unable to do, it looks like you have a F-350 tied to the MS4 inspector. If we're unable to do the inspector, we don't need the truck.
You don't need the truck, exactly.
I guess we're going to have to drill down on you. I'm not
That's-
sure I can support all this, and
I fully expect that. I mean, you had asked questions previously when we were here about the thermoplastics versus the painting of the lines. The price is 3 to 4 times more expensive to put thermoplastic down. The thermoplastic that we were proposing to use is a thinner grade than the State Highway Administration uses. It requires probably replacement every 7 to 9 years, as opposed to repainting in some intersections required annually. That may be a program that we don't implement this year. It may be that we find the money internally to try a pilot program at a very heavily used intersection that gets plowed as part of the snow emergency route, that gets direct sunlight so it can dull and test the adhesives of the thermoplastic. And that saves, I think that was 228,000.
705, yeah.
Now, is that a one-time, are you talking like a test strip? Is that essentially
Just a
what you-
pilot test strip, yeah.
And what's that going to do? Is it going to tell you if the product that you're using is sufficient to cover the need?
It'll give us an idea of when is the return on your investment.
All right.
If you're paying 3 times, but it lasts 4 times as long or 5 times as long, there is an ROI at the end of the day. But we can't say definitively what in our climate that ROI is. We'd be guessing. I don't want to guess with all of our county roads.
So if you did that, you'd only need that could be a potential fund balance item because you would do it and then you'd monitor it for several years?
Yes. Yes.
And that was 200 and,
No, the 200 is if he implemented the full program. He's saying he might be able to find enough savings to do a test.
Correct.
okay. Well, then
Correct.
That sounds even better.
And maybe it's just a mile strip with some stop bars in it.
So this to ask more about the thermoplastic, is it more resilient than the stuff that was put down on Route 5 when MDOT was doing a paving project up there?
I believe what they used was the temporary adhesive because when the wind got
It came up all
into
over
it,
the
it
place.
came up easily.
Yeah.
What they actually melt the plastic into the asphalt, so it reduces your liability for cars that drive over the spray and submit claims from auto body shops to get it polished off.
Okay.
Lasts longer, and it's more reflective.
Just wanted to make sure on that because that was a
Disaster.
Right.
Yeah.
That
Done
is our
nicely, yeah.
ECC page 18, which was 228,705. And I think to do a pilot, a test, and monitor it, we can find that in the existing striping budget. There are 3 dump trucks, if I recall correctly.
Yes. At 283, 490 apiece.
And those are starting to take the lead time of an ambulance and pumper trucks. They're starting to take 18 months to 24 months for delivery. The truck manufacturers are waiting for a PO to start building or start allocating the chassis. They only accept dump truck chassis orders in October, November, and once they've reached their quota, they stop accepting orders. And then the body builders wait until they actually have a VIN from the manufacturer to start manufacturing the dump bodies. So in this January snowstorm, we lost 1 truck due to engine failure. As a 2013 or a 2014. Engine replacement on that vehicle that's already 12 years old would cost us $40,000 to $50,000. We have 2 other dump trucks that have been taken out of service, and so I went and I sat with Rick and I said, what do dump trucks mean to highways? That's how they get the asphalt to the pothole repair. It's how they get the excavation from the ditches, keeping the ditch lines clean so it doesn't flood the neighboring properties. It's how they get the pipe for the pipe replacement at driveway crossings. It's how they get the dead animals off the road, and it's how they get the heavy equipment to the site. And I said, well, what can you do with an F-450 and a trailer that if you didn't have these dump trucks? And he said, basically, we could just close the door because if we didn't have the dump trucks, there's not a lot we can do to serve the public. We can't plow the snow that we would plow with our trucks, bless you. And so these are important. Are they expensive? Yes. Are they scheduled to be replaced? It's beyond scheduled to be
I
replaced
think
at
we've
this
kicked
point.
this can a few years now on these dump trucks.
I think 22 was the last time there were any purchased. according to our records.
Okay, another potential fund balance item. How much were the three of them?
They were 4 and change each, 400 and... I'm still learning this system.
If you check your screen, am I pointing to the right area?
It is. The total cost was the
That 450
850
dump truck,
470.
104,000.
All right, so then you had the two service.
Oh,
Are you
no, I think we're up here.
150 or to the real dump truck?
Yeah, the real dump truck, sorry, 147,666.
That's the
Total cost of
mileage.
850,000?
Correct.
Yep.
That's the
Holy
mileage on
smokes.
the one that
Three of them. So
Three of
blew
them.
the engine.
800.
$850,470.
283,490 is the line item number for them right here.
And so I asked the question, are they
A lot of
custom?
money.
They're not custom. These are off the shelf. When they're available, they're off the shelf dump trucks.
Off the shelf.
We put a sticker on them, but that's the extent of customization. These are as basic a dump truck as you can get.
They come in your choice of white, white, or white.
All right,
Yeah.
we'll put that on the list. 850.
Director, what's the age of the trucks that you're looking to replace? Where the
2013s and 2014s, all over 100 and, well, at this point, they're over 150,000 miles. One has a blown engine, one has a rotted chassis that, so when they come in
so
from,
you have two DOAs
we have 2 DOAs and one that's limping.
and one is on life support.
They do spend at least an hour per truck hot washing it after it comes in from spreading salt to try and keep the corrosion to a minimum, which is probably why we get so long a life out of them as we do, because hauling salt and spreading salt, plowing snow is the hardest work a dump truck can do.
I have nothing else right now. Thank you.
I don't have anything either.
That's painful enough.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, Recreation and Parks budget request. We have Director Ray Bivens approaching.
Good afternoon, sir.
Great to see everybody. Raymond Bivens, Recreation and Parks. I will share that I have to point out that our budget overall request is down 3.7%. So the ECCs, we really took a strong look at what can provide long-term savings and then areas we can try to improve our customer service. So just to highlight 2 of them, one of them is a pilot program to purchase an autonomous or robotic mower. So think about our Bermuda fields. They need cut very regularly. We're paying a contractor currently to come in, sometimes 2 to 3 times a week, depending on rain and things like that. Ideally, if this pilot goes well, a staff member can place that on a field like 5th District for football that isn't being used during the day. It gets cut while that staff member is off over taking care of baseball fields, doing other things around the park. So this is a pilot to look at that. If it goes successfully, I'd like to be back here next year and ask to move some money out of contractual into other areas and make more of those happen. I think it's a real area for growth for us, and these machines have made tremendous strides and would have application at the golf course, anywhere we're cutting grass, that especially a Bermuda field, it's a set area, very easy. And there's some pretty large models that they come anywhere close to people or another object, it just shuts down. If it was to be stolen, it's tracked, anything like that. And then the other one, piece of equipment.
On the mowers, do you have any prior professional experience with the use of them?
We've had demos out at our sites at the golf course. We actually invited all the neighboring golf courses so they could see it, and we had our parks maintenance staff there. And then we're having them come back as soon as we got some growth. We wanted them specifically on the Bermuda field. But we've done our research, and we even have an intern right now that is come from Coastal Carolina, and he's trying to put together kind of a model of what would be a good next step.
So I know Delegate Crosby got money for some robotic mowers down at historic St. Mary's. Do we know how those have worked out? Any?
I will actually be down there on Thursday or Friday, and I'll check in on that. I have talked to other places that are using them, from cemeteries to fields like this, and I've heard really good reviews. Golf courses were kind of some of the early adopters, especially in areas where you might get some rough that you don't cut as often, or it might be on a little steeper slope where you might not want to put someone in that kind of situation. So my goal is I do have 2 positions I'm asking for in there. I know it's a tough budget. We're probably not going to get 2 positions. They're both in our parks maintenance side of things. But I'm hoping next year I can come back to you and say, hey, I would like to ask for another position, but I could cut this much from my contractual service budget. I think some of those Bermuda fields are getting upwards of 28 cuts a year. So it's a pretty intensive project in that way. And our staff could even have some more flexibility of like, hey, don't want to cut it today. It was a little too wet, where a contractor coming in, they have their rotation they have to stick to, and the best there. And then the other is a piece of equipment in that same world. It's a track loader. I generally think of like a Bobcat with a power rake attachment. We don't have one of those at all right now. It would be an incredibly helpful tool with taking care of our fields. So you can level, you can remove rocks, you can soil compaction, and then come wintertime, it would be a tool that would be helpful to, our staff does all of the parking lots for the governmental complex and other locations. So
Is that the 55,000?
that is the 55,000.
And what about this pilot program for these lawnmowers? How much is that?
I think that one was 45,000 for
Are you
for
talking
one.
Maybe potentially 100 for those two?
Yes.
That could be fund balance stuff.
55 for the robotic. Was it 80 on the? It was the track. It was under equipment.
85,000?
85.
59?
What are these park maintenance people going to do? They're going to be mowing grass if you get them? What are they going to be doing?
So the crew that takes care of our snow and does our parks, it hasn't grown in decades. So while we've added parks like Snow Hill and the trail and things like that, so some of it will be able to save what we ask contractors to do, but more just kind of keeping up and helping fill those gaps when there are special projects and things like that that come up. But it's an extra set of hands. So they are more leadership type positions. They're a little higher. We don't have, we'd like to have a northern and a southern crew led by a crew chief. So that's one of those. And then our top priority is actually the maintenance supervisor. So that's everything from, we put a lot on Roy's shoulders. I think one, it would be helping to train a replacement in the future to potentially, but also, when you look at the different projects that we have out there, I think roughly 30% of our capital budget comes from grants. So we're managing some $1 million grants, some playground removals, things that kind of fly under the radar, and most of that falls under Roy. And then we do have a special projects person, Christy, but she's also our grant writer, and she's doing all sorts of other things as well.
And you need a couple replacement trucks also.
Yeah, and that's meeting the DPW guidelines, and those are also used for snow removal as well.
I can't imagine anybody's using your parks during the snow, are they?
They want to get on there. Read the comments. All this rain has been desperately needed in the snow because Wicomico Shores we're well below our pond levels, but it keeps people off the fields that they want to get onto. So it's, and we actually had people, this was one of the first time we actually plowed the trail. Historically, we just kind of let the trail warm up on its own. And we got so many requests from people that we did do some shoveling. It's last on the list, just because we have, we're doing all the stuff around here. Then we move to the parks, but we did get to that this year. It was with that ice, it was a special time. Usually snow doesn't stick around like that ice did.
All right, we'll put you on the list.
Thank you all for the support.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Ray, before you move on, the enterprise funds is the next slide, just checking if there's any questions regarding Wacomico or the enterprise fund.
Seems like we always need some equipment at Wacomico.
The good news there is our play continues to be up in a large way. So, and the course is looking fabulous. My big concern is the irrigation, which you guys have given us resources. We're working through the permitting, but if we ever did run dry on our ponds, it's a dire situation to pay Metcom kind of rates to water and things like that. It just isn't a sustainable kind of thing. So, and we appreciate you guys. There's money in the capital budget to help with some of the ongoing kind of efforts at Wacomico.
There's a course down in Myrtle Beach that has water on 15 of 18 holes. So as long as you don't turn Wacomico into another man of war, that's what that course is called, I'd be happy. But I think George can take a breath.
We like to keep pace of play a little faster than that. That's good for keeping golfers from being less frustrated. They'll eat more food with us, and they'll come back more.
That's a tough course, even for a scratch golfer, like Scott.
Like me, for sure. Yep.
But yeah, as long as we can keep it in play, and play is up, you said?
Play is significantly up. If you look at the last 3 years, you're talking double-digit jumps in multiple years.
Good.
So now, we've been closed for much of February, but it's not hard to make that up. Our rounds were only slightly down in the month of February.
As long as they don't start asking for a synthetic golf course, turf field.
Don't go there.
Yeah.
Don't even go there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We did not do the Public Works, the solid waste. They had a couple ECCs. You want to bring them back up? He's available. Did you have any questions on the ECCs for Public Works for the solid waste?
New trailers, right?
Yeah, starts on page 200. Yeah, the tilt trailer and the replacement of the push-out trailers.
How old are those?
How much was that?
101,250 was the tilt trailer's 9250, and then if you do the exempt financing, it's 92,000. The cost of the push-out trailers was 400,000 for 2 of them.
$1 million? $1 million?
400 for the total for 2 of them.
Oh, 400 for 2.
Right.
Plus 92 would be 500,000.
You know, 9250 and
But it appears your
409,000.
dump trucks were
for all three.
850,000, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, only $500,000.
Oh, thank goodness.
And we did find a new vendor for the trailers. We think we're going to be able to get them stronger, cheaper, as opposed to stronger, weaker. So they'll last more than the 10, 15 years we typically get. The
Are these
engines,
things that you swap out at the convenience center?
correct. And the engines on these will also be undercover as opposed to exposed to the elements, which should help save on repair costs. So we're really excited about the new vendor, what they can do.
And I got to say, those people who handle that for us do a great job. I thank them every time I go to one, and thank God they're there.
Yeah. We were fortunate to be able to hire, I think we extended 3 new offers for landfill attendant hourlies, and we have regular part-time advertisements out there as well.
All right.
Thank you.
Before you step away, we're moving right into the fees schedule. there's a question on solid waste recycling. That's just the
Well,
annual
that one
update.
goes up every year, and
It
we
does, it's
take that
just
up.
the annual update.
We do it, and what's our normal, 2%? Do we have like a usual amount that we go up with?
I believe so.
It's not frozen, is it?
It
Doesn't
isn't.
it go up every year?
It is recurring,
Recurring, yeah.
yes.
And what's the percentage?
I believe 2%.
Yeah, I thought so.
For the recycling, I believe it is 2%. For the solid waste disposal, we're at the tipping rates that are set by others.
Okay, at one point, we were doing very well on recycling, something like over 50%, if I remember right. Do we know how we're doing with recycling these days?
We're still over 40%, largely because of the commitment from this board to focus on recycling for the consumers and having the 2 recycle places at most of the convenience centers, but also your wood chipping and your mulching. So all of that waste product, that wood waste product that gets chipped, counts towards our recycling goal. So we're still over 40% in MDEs.
Wasn't there some kind of a mandated level we had to be at?
MDE's objective is 15%.
15%, and we're
Yes.
at 40.
Yes.
Ah, thank goodness.
Well over 40, but I don't think we're at 53 any longer.
Yeah, I thought we were over 50.
Now, our household hazardous waste days are always some of the most popular days in the county, and I think we do 2 a year.
We do 2 a year. That's correct. In coordination with, I believe it's MES, Maryland Environmental Service, comes down. There is one later this month. I believe it's the 26th or 28th, but I could be confusing that with the shredding day, because we also have a shredding day coming up, and we have a scrap tire recycling each year too.
So that's the only really fee we have is the recycling fee?
Please hold, we have rec. Correct.
And all
Well,
of
that's
your
good.
other,
Keep fees down.
As far as changes presented today, yes.
yeah, development review fees are fixed elsewhere, and there's not a proposal to change those this year. Okay, thank you.
Are we sticking with fees right now?
We are moving into Wacomico.
For sure.
And Rec and Parks.
I was quick. Back.
Looks like we want to creep up the youth admission for summer stock. How'd that work out last year with changing our fee structure?
It essentially was a kind of a wash. It broke out about the same. There was some grumblings. No one likes fees increases, but they,
But there were decreases for some.
there were
people.
some, but people generally don't speak up about that.
Yeah.
But yes, so
I'll say I have been hearing people complaining that Rex and Park fees are getting too high. Now, as a commissioner, and I'm sitting in that role, they're usually directing that at me, but they're trying to be nice and not to say it to me directly. But I take it that way, so I'll tell them, maintenance on these things is a big deal. And people want good fields. They want to make sure they're getting the best product to do their, and they're talking about, there's not enough for practice. They can only practice twice a week. They like to practice 3 times a week. And I told them there's a fee associated with all that. So how do you look at our fees compared to our local neighbors, Calvert fees, or do you even keep track of that?
yeah, we do look. I think our model is a little different when it comes to that per player fee. So for the season, they'll pay, I think it's around $9 a child. I think that is a fantastic deal. When it comes to, the cost of maintaining those fields and adding more fields, I do think that's part of why we've asked for that study to look at what fields need expanded, working on some public-private partnerships. We need fields, but we also need them in very specific locations, because there's some we could add them that wouldn't make a lot of sense. Looking at what we have and how we can change it, there's definitely a lack of 90-foot baseball diamonds, not just for the teens and youth that play on that, but also adults that use those fields, and that we're very limited in the county in that area. And then the flip side of it on the affordability, we look at what the other county are charging. Charles, last time through their budget cycle, they implemented fees for their recreational programs that were over a 4-year period, and they were jumping year 1, and then they already were jumping in year 3. So I think we're reasonably priced, but what I'm excited about this proposal that I presented to you in the budget is I really want to make sure that those that are the most in need can reach our programs, and I've proposed a new scholarship program, expanding what we already have. So it follows the rules that we've always had when it came to free or reduced lunch is who's eligible for this program. But currently, our scholarship program has been funded through fundraisers like the Easter Egg Festival or sponsorships or donations, and it's only been for Rec and Parks run programs. So we're talking basketball, our cheerleading, our other programs like that, swim lessons, things like that. So this expanded program, we would be able to partner with those leagues, and any kids that meet that eligibility requirement, we'd be able to pay half. So we're talking football, soccer, softball, baseball, those type of things. We tried to put a good estimate of what we would be needed for that. And I said, hey, if this happens, how much do you think you've needed it? And, like here in Leonardtown, it costs $275 to play football. Now, $9 of that is coming to Rec and Parks for the field usage. But you have all those other kind of fees that are out there. And the leaders of Leonardtown told me there's no doubt about it. They have a lot of kids interested, but when it comes time to pay the fee to reserve your spot, they lose people. And that's even with some of the scholarships they offer. So they saw this as a big addition because they would continue doing what they're doing, but they would be able to expand that reach. So
That's something that's important obviously throughout the entire county.
And I want to appreciate you for pushing me in that direction, encouraging me. It's a great idea, so.
So tell me, I had a
You did the
parent
heavy
reach
lift.
out about a daughter who plays softball. And she said the games, I guess, are at Lancaster and Lexington Park or Dorsey in Hollywood, but the practices are in Ridge. And, it was kind of like, well, I don't know what to tell you. So what do I tell someone who mentions that to me?
Well, a lot of folks don't realize that we're not the ones telling them directly what fields to use. So
Oh, is that right?
we're partnering with that organization. They're putting in that field request, whether it's St. Mary's Little League, we mentioned baseball and softball there, Southern Maryland Youth Organization. We permit the fields, but then they decide which teams and which coaches, and they feel like where they can double up.
So that's more of it on their side of the,
Yeah.
okay.
Now, in response, I think there isn't a group that would say they would like more practice fields. And that's really what our priority is. More game fields would be nice, but that's not where we're seeing the shortage. The nice thing about more games fields, it does open up space for tournaments and things like that. Right now, can you imagine if we shut down Chancellor's for a weekend and we had to, if it was a baseball, softball tournament, then we can't let people onto the turf because that's taking over. There's only so much parking, those type of things. So it's a balance, but I think our staff does a really good job. In this role over the last year, I've tried to meet with every one of those league leaders and kind of learn what their problems were. That they're worried about that fee going up, and I told them in this partnership, I'm not looking to increase the fee. I want to make sure that I can help them do their job, because if there's something isn't running well, people aren't going to know whether it's Rec and Parks and individual
they don't
league.
know.
We want good things happening for our kids, for sure.
Well, the thought is if we play our games at Lancaster and Dorsey, why don't we practice at Lancaster and Dorsey? And I don't have an answer for that.
Well, and that's the practice demand is where there really is, because when all those teams that generally they want to run all their practices on the same night, and once games start, you don't need
You don't
half
have
the
the
space.
availability.
Yeah. So, and we're looking. We use a lot of school fields in that formula as well to make that happen, and we're trying to be better stewards and take better care of those school fields that we use too when it comes to grading and things like that, because they're really important during the practice season, but we're not playing a whole lot of games on them. But again, that position I asked for you earlier, that would be helping us to do a higher standard of care on those fields.
So jumping over to before and after care. That's something that the board has for a couple years pushed back on any cost increases because we recognize people utilizing before and after care need it for work and stuff. I don't quite understand what we're seeing this time where there's no current year cost to it, but there's.
Can you give us the
What
page
pa-
number
what
for
page,
that?
John?
I'm looking at page 221 of 367.
You have 221, Andy. So in some of the cases, fees that we have been charging and having ongoing just haven't made it into the document for one reason or another. So this, we did kind of an overhaul, and so it was in stuff being submitted, but it wasn't making it into this document.
So, well, we've had before and after care in our fees
before and after care, yes.
So I guess the question, the real simple question is, did our before and after care costs go up, or did they stay the same, or did they go down?
So costs have gone up, mainly staffing type of things as things aren't gone. We've also reopened some of our before and after care. We've reopened at least one facility that wasn't operating in the past. And we knew that we hit the baseline where we are encouraged that it's going to go and be profitable again, but we know kind of going into it. I don't believe that we're doing any significant cost change to before and after care. So the zero, I can get back to you on
Okay.
why.
Because if there's a change in the cost for the users, that needs to be highlighted in here.
Yeah, I see it. It should have been in blue, and I don't know why the change is not there. We'll look into it.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Then, on the next page, help me understand the things that are crossed out. Are we just not doing those programs anymore?
Yeah, there are
They
some that just
don't
aren't
work?
doing, yep.
Yeah, okay.
You see any big ones that jump out at you when you looked at them that said this one was really out of line with what's happened before?
I think one of them, I just wanted to bring your attention to, when I first started as director, we talked about golf a good bit. We have raised the fees. One of the things that it's a little kind of minutia in the detail. So when you rent a cart, that there's a tax that goes onto that we don't see and keep. And so our cart fees have kind of adjusted a little bit, and our overall fees for the course play. So if people don't use a cart, that's fine, that's up to them. But the overall, we met that goal of what you had asked, that that you thought that was an area we could look at increasing the fees. The popularity is certainly there. It's not a dramatic increase, but I think it's certainly going to help offset some of the investment and growth of the course.
You got a new bus trip for Screamfest. Bus trips are very popular that you all do, I know.
Yeah, we set a record on how many buses we sent to New York this year.
Oh, wow.
For sure, so.
Very nice.
Yep. And I'm open for all ears. I will say, I feel like the way we present all these fees is a lot. It would be nice. I know we've started tracking when's the last time we raised a fee. I'd like to have that into a future one so you can see. But even when it's down to like tablecloths for weddings at Wycomico Shores, that's probably a little more in the weeds than you guys want to be.
Yeah, I think so.
But we'll work on that.
Well, I think that what we're after, or at least this commissioner, is cost shifts, that someone can say, I paid this last year and it really went up. Because when we hear people say these fees are getting too high, or they should be lower, we need to understand what's causing the fees to be what they are.
Yeah, the areas we're seeing the most rapid rise, chemicals at the pool, that is one. Finding labor for our hourly staff that work our parks. It's not a glamorous job, emptying the trash, telling people they can't park where they want to, making sure the bathrooms are clean. That's one we're having a hard time, and we're probably in the future going to need to come back and ask for a little higher salary there, because it's It's been a very tough recruitment kind of thing. As far as, I don't think we didn't try to do anything that was a dramatic shift on any of our fees across the board. There were some minor tweaks, and then, of course, we had found some that we had been charging, but it didn't seem to make its way into the document. So that's part of why you're seeing some of those new fees, but they're not really new fees.
All right. I don't see anything that rose out and jumped at me, so.
Any additional comments on the enterprise fund?
No.
No? Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vehicle financing.
All right. So we heard a desire to understand the imputed rate and the interest cost associated with our projections included in the ECCs. Currently, the interest rate being imputed is 4 point, hold. There we go, 4.85%. That is probably on the very conservative side, but that is our model. The column that you did not see in the past, you had the total cost, the exempt finance cost based on that rate included in the ECCs, and then I went through and layered in what portion of that is the total interest. Now, that is total interest, that's not annual.
So that's the five, what are we talking? What's your total?
Total interest,
No, what's your,
795?
is that your 9.7?
9.7 is the total cost of the requested vehicles and equipment.
And then the interest would be $1.5 million, $1,458,000?
That is correct. In addition to this vehicle and equipment, there are some other non-reoccurring costs, as we've identified in the ECCs, that are also eligible for fund balance.
Well, that $9,715,000 is too high for fund balance. So we have to finance.
Okay? Any further discussion, observations? Okay. All right, moving on to our current fund balance. As of fiscal year end 25 audited financials, our total general fund reserve was $69 million. With the 15% of reserve policy, that drops the undesignated fund balance available for use to $18.9 million. As we just discussed, we have $5.6 million in vehicle and $4.1 in equipment purchase requests. The reserves and the enterprise support, and this is that line at the bottom of the operating cost presentation, the operating expenses. So some of that is staff's recommendation, my recommendation for a snow fund, emergency fund of 3.2, enterprise support based on the fiscal year end 25 deficit in fund balances. So in the enterprise fund, when we conversed last year, we established the policy or the practice of looking at the latest audited financial statements and bringing those funds to zero that were below zero. So rolling in that information. A question was posed, instead of including the annual emergency fund as an operating cost each year when we don't use it every year, the question was posed if we could transfer fund balance to the revolving fund, which we can, then that would populate, it would sit there and wait until it was needed, and then it would need to be refunded once it was used. But then it's a one-time occurrence out of fund balance. It is not a reoccurring annual budgeted item, again, until it needs to be repopulated. So if we went 3 years without an emergency event, we would not need to be concerned about that annual operating budget line item. That's just a discussion.
I'm just going to need this broke out a little bit more.
Okay.
Reserves and enterprise at $7,013,000. I mean, you don't have to do it now, but I would like to see it on paper. You're talking $3,200,000 for snow removal? Is that what you said?
That is what I said. Yes. And then $1 million for not-for-profit grants. So
What about the LoSAP Plus program?
there are two outstanding considerations, and I would look to commissioners to converse and maybe provide a request for, if you deem fit, the LoSAP trust to consider starting to reimburse our annual
Absolutely, we're
LoSAP.
going to do that.
So the scenario is currently we make contributions to the LoSAP trust. We also pay out the benefits, we being the county, without any reimbursement. When we last met with the actuary and the new report, the fund is now or the trust is now at a funded balance where it is viable to consider reimbursing the county for those benefits on an annual basis, which.
So that's where the source of the LoSAP Plus fund could come from? Is that what you're thinking?
No, that would just, no, LoSAP.
That has to come out of fund
Yeah.
balance.
Correct. This would be reimbursing for the benefits that we're currently not being reimbursed for.
I'm sorry, I'm talking while you're talking. But my concern is what we're doing is we're paying into the LoSAP trust fund, and we're also paying the LoSAP benefits. So that's two in there. Now, what we're talking about doing is contributing into the trust, but then reimbursing ourselves whatever the benefits are.
Correct.
So that's a net savings of about 1.5 million, if I remember right. 1.583?
I believe the amount we typically budget for that is $1 million. But
Oh, well, that's what we do out of fund balance, though.
we can certainly bring
But
back.
We've talked about, I sat in that, in that presentation. And what we talked about doing was whatever we were putting out in LoSAP benefits.
Correct.
We were going to reimburse ourselves back. So it seems like there's a savings. Instead of putting it out plus putting it in, we're only doing one entry.
We would still make the annual contributions.
Yeah, but we wouldn't pay them out because we would reimburse ourselves.
Correct. So that would be the savings.
Isn't that a wash when you pay it out and then you reimburse yourself?
That is correct.
All right.
But that's not coming out of fund balance.
No,
we
it's
did that
coming
out
out,
of
it's coming out of the trust. So that's
It's
coming-
not currently. That is the consideration
discussion
for
to be
a
had,
request
right.
or a recommendation.
We've finally got to the point where we can.
We can do that,
Yes.
and we've been recommended to do that. But the point is, it generates 1.583 million. Look, check that number, because I'm
Will
not
do.
always quite accurate. But I remember following that, and Commissioner Oster, you were in on that.
Yep. And that, yeah.
I mean, it just seems it's going to be additional funds available
can
to
use.
do something. Yeah.
The LoSAP Trust Board meets again on April 24th, if you would like to make that request for consideration.
I thought you
But
guys
that
already
is-
did that.
I thought we decided on that, didn't we?
You already made that request that you were going to reimburse.
That we were going to reimburse? I don't think we've
We did
decided
not.
that yet.
We did not decide that.
You didn't decide that?
Well, I think it's something we need
Okay,
to
well, I was
decide.
just sitting in the audience, I thought I heard that. I mean,
We
the guy
discussed
from
the possibility.
Boomershine
Right.
was saying, you guys should do this.
Oh, absolutely. He said that. Yeah, we just haven't had that conversation.
Well, that's
do
something
it.
that's something we
Yeah.
should get on the schedule for the 24th.
Yeah.
We can certainly.
Again, because then we'll bring it up in the budget work sessions the first weeks in May.
We can plan for
Correct.
it now, can't we?
Well, I thought we had, but, if you're saying we didn't do that, I mean,
I
what's
could have
your,
sworn we.
I thought we did
sworn we
too.
did.
We didn't do a formal vote or anything.
We did not.
We'll
Okay.
go back and watch the tape. That's the deal.
Well, let's just say you're the chairman, so we'll give you the benefit of the doubt, if that's what
Thank
you
you.
say. But I knew, I was sitting out there and I thought for sure you got it. All right, go ahead.
Well, I'm hearing a consensus that the request has been made. So we'll
Well, generate
agenda,
the revenue so we can put it towards use.
we'll agendize that item.
Thanks.
The other outstanding consideration is, as you recall, the commissioners decided to amend the fire and rescue loan policy. So the delta between the current, or the previous 5 million and the current 8 million level of that policy, the funding mechanism of that $3 million. That is an outstanding consideration, how quickly the commissioners want to fund that for use, and I'm sure that that will come back to looking at the anticipated expenditures. But that is an outstanding item.
So when would be the appropriate time to adjust that? May again?
I would like to bring it back next week at the budget workshop with the updated fire and loan,
Well, if
so that
we're
we can inform.
financing our vehicle purchases, that frees up 9 million here. Fund
Yeah,
balance.
that's why I'd like to bring it back next week, so that you have all of
Okay,
the
well,
information
then there
to
you
start
go.
pulling
That's-
those levers.
That's, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, very good, thank you. Will do. Anything else?
That was clear. We'll need some more granularity, I think is the term, that this, we don't get these large numbers that have no, this page 80,
It was,
page 80.
it was summarized of previous data, but I will split that out in the future for next
Yeah,
week,
so we can-
absolutely.
yeah.
All right. Well, sorry, I just scrolled right through there. Going the wrong way. Not-for-profit grants, that was the other line item. If there's any commissioner direction, there's the $1 million.
Don't we have that coming up next week, those requests? I'd say you'll get your direction after we hear the request.
Very good.
And just so we're clear, it's being vetted by county administrator's office and
Departments,
and
right?
departments, and then
Department.
comes back to us.
Yes.
There is a work group.
Yeah, okay.
And this year, I believe we have to, the recipients have to show where the money is going, as opposed to where it hasn't been in the past, where it's been like, hey, here's your grant from us. Is that correct?
Yeah, they need to, yes, submit semi-annual reports and annual reports, yes.
Okay.
All right. Next up, next week, state agencies and the not-for-profit discussion.
Okay.
Very good.
All right.
So we'll carve this pie up on the 24th.
We'll be pretty close next week. then.
Well, we got to listen to them first and
Yeah,
then take
I agree.
take it into consideration.
Anticipate next week bringing back the model that we used last year so that we can begin that process, and then
Okay.
we'll,
Yeah, but I see actually nailing it down on the 24th.
that is correct. Oh, we will start that process next week, after the state agencies and the not-for-profit.
All right.
We may or may not make it all the way through that process, and then we'll go
We'll
from
get
there.
started.
We'll get started. All right. Thank you.
That it for you for today?
No. But for this meeting, it is.
All you.
Oh, I'm just used to sitting here.
Yeah.
All right. So, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
That'll do it.
No comment, no
No
circumstance.
comment, no nothing. We don't. We'll be back at